like that image in that area. That's what it reminded me. And the feeling, if there is nothing more, the feeling is, in the beginning, it felt like sadness, but eventually it was even more than sadness. Hopelessness, despair, maybe even anguish. So much that you feel your heart like squeezed and like there must be. So that squeezing, that anguish is what makes us go into frustration and say there must be something, and look for it. But otherwise we satisfy. It feels like we're satisfied with the world as it is. It's not like we're denying God or we're denying, but remember, not denying is not the same as believing. Believing is to be in the presence of the everlasting. In order to be in the presence of the everlasting, I have to be always aware. I have to be aware of the transience of things, because it's their transience that mirrors and reflect the everlasting one. It is their transience, that the transience of everything, that is the gate to everlastingness. And so when we avoid transience, even if we talk about the everlasting one, we're talking about it, but we cannot truly taste it, experience it, as we remember, as we saw in the 11th words, the how to use our needs as keys to the treasures of the beautiful names of God. So accordingly, we can start, inshallah, reading from the beginning. Yes, someone?
Yes, Dr. Yamina, since you were talking about this meditation where you meditated for a couple minutes, I wondered if we could do a sample of it now. We sometimes start with a meditation. Do you think we could do a bit of that, like we imagine?
I think it would make it more real than just talking about it, because it's really, as he said in the beginning, it's something that needs to be weighed in the heart. It's not, well, yeah, you can understand it, but understanding is one step, and it's not a sufficient step. We have to internalize it. It means we have to truly, in order to understand what's going on, we have to experience it, taste it.
So are we going to imagine, let's say, everything is going to end tonight at midnight, and how I feel about that? Could that be?
The reality is that nothing is lasting. This moment is flowing. It's already gone. So however makes it
real.
I did not think of I'm going to die. I could die tomorrow, which is the truth. It's just that the truth is nothing is lasting. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. I take it for granted that I'll be again in my home, unless I planned otherwise. But it's not the truth. I know deep down that anything could happen tomorrow.
Now, are we to imagine this without life after death? I mean, there is one meditation where we think about death, and we mentioned earlier that this was something actually done traditionally as well, to kind of muraqabat al-maut. But then that's more a moment of like confronting yourself. What are you doing? You're going to answer to God, kind of. But this you're saying is a different.
No, just the reality. Then
everything is passing.
Yeah, this is the first step. This is the reality. Then the next step, we will discuss the next step, inshallah.
Okay, so should we do?
Because usually we avoid that first step, and so anything that comes after is not. It's like I'm saying I'm unaware of my hunger, and so you give me plenty of food, but I'm not eating them because I'm avoiding my hunger. I'm unaware that I'm hungry. And therefore, what you put there, I'm unaware that it's food. It's just beautiful things that you are. It's a beautiful banquet, beautiful things, but they are not answering a real need within us.
Dr. Yamina?
Yes.
This is Amina here. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I don't know where the raise your hand button is, so I just unmuted myself. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to share, but I had an experience like this last night.
Subhanallah.
And so I'm older, but the age doesn't matter because I could be young. And there was this sense of being somewhat very detached from almost everything. But the one thing I was holding on to was the love I have for my daughter. And I suspect in that moment was just wanting to know the unknown and needing to be present with the unknown. But there's a deep grief that I felt. And what I chose to do in that moment was just to stay with the grief. And I guess the reason was sometimes like when you're outside or you hope you see the sun out and then the rain clouds come through and you're saying, well, I hope it was going to be a sunny day. And so it was just wanting to really allow that grief rather than suppressing it, and rather trying, let's say, this image of pushing away the rain cloud, wanting to stay with that feeling because in the moment that's what felt right for me, so that it wasn't suppressed, so that I could feel it deeply. And in that acceptance of that emotion, then everything became quiet because I know in a deeper place that we're between God's hands. But it was just that love and wanting to know that when I die, that she'll be okay. And that just that deep love and the richness she's brought to my life. So I just wanted to share that. It's, I think, very similar to what you're speaking about. And yet wanting to stay with my human emotion and let that feel the richness, the heaviness, the richness of that grief. And then it passed. Inshallah.
It fulfilled its purpose. It fulfilled its message. It's a messenger. And when we stay with it, we stay with it. Either if we learned how to decipher the signs, the messages of God, then we can go step by step. But even if we don't, if we know, we will realize that deep down, there we know that someone is taking care of us, because actually I am not taking care of myself right now, and I cannot sustain my daughter's life or anything. So actually what I have is only a need for her to be well, and that need translates into prayer and acknowledgement and appreciation and gratitude to the one who is taking care of her needs and my needs and everyone else's needs. So every sign takes us back to our sustainer, our Rabb, to God, and to various names of God. The names of God are all look to each other here because it's the eternal one, the everlasting one. You can see that all the names are everlasting. So each name looks to all of them. Why? Because and everlastingness is a mercy, for instance, because at the end they are all pointing to the same reality, but we are created in a way that we need to, in the beginning, differentiate those different attributes, and then realize that they are all one, and they all look one onto the other, and they all point to the same reality. But in the beginning, we need to be able to differentiate them, because that's how we're created. That's how we reach. We cannot comprehend things all at once and comprehensively. So it's a journey. But that grief, and when we stay more like with, especially with this name, there is even more than grief. It's like, can you imagine everything, even what I say, me, I, seems like at the center of everything. That I, there is nothing to hold on. Suddenly, you feel there is nothing to hold on, nothing to ground, and darkness, because there is no light, no future, no meaning, no purpose, no. It's a very alarming situation that when we stay with it, then it takes us. When we stay with it, we start listening to its message. But if we avoid it, we say, no, I don't want to experience this because it's so discomforting, it's very painful, then we will live in an illusion. We'll be deluding ourselves and deceiving ourselves, and we won't get the deeper messages from that reality. And that reality, how those feelings, the grief and the pain and the despair, are our first response to that reality. That's how I become aware of that reality. And that reality has a purpose. It is created with meaning, with purpose. Meaning, purpose, messages for me. And that's why those feelings are induced in me. They are messengers from beyond, from God, bearing very, very meaningful and very essential messages. The keys to the treasures of the beautiful names of God, the treasures to paradise, the treasures to being, to reality. Apart from that, there is nothing. So we can just stay with the reality of transience. Everything is transient. And when you are closing your eyes, if you feel no, they are not transient, then you can share that. If you think or feel that no, they are not transient, who said they're transient?
Thank you, sister.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So, Isra, will you
keep the time?
Yeah.
How long?
I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
And we just stay with the reality that everything is transient.
Okay, 3 minutes, inshallah.
Bismillah.
Time is up.
Thank you, Isra. Anyone who wants to share? Inshallah. Doesn't have to be long.
Yeah, subhanallah, like when you think about things that are leaving, you become more grateful. Like I'm experiencing my health changing, so I'm grateful to whatever health I have now. I'm not in the complaining mode that I'm not as good as before, because then I'm thinking about this group that we're together. We're not always going to be together, so you're thankful for that we are together now. My mother is visiting me. She won't be always here. I won't be always. So we're thankful for here and now. So I think the more I was thinking about it, I realized the value to be more thankful. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
That is not exactly what we were supposed to do, right? I mean, because your mom she goes back to Egypt, and you will see her another year. So that's not really transient.
That wasn't what I thought, Isra. I was thinking about going
forever.
Going for back to God. We're all going back. My father went. My brother went. Everyone has a time. So everything goes, just goes. Alhamdulillah, returns back. I tried to focus on me returning back, but I couldn't get there. Like I was trying to focus on like me going back. I couldn't get there. It was easier to think of other people leaving me than me leaving. Okay, guys, I started the sharing so everyone else can share. So, Bismillah.
What came to my mind was just feeling if everything just ends and there's no taste of immortality or nothing that lasts beyond it, everything just feels suffocating. Everything that I love becomes suffocating and everything becomes meaningless. And I remembered a conversation that I had with a friend that I knew who does not believe in God, who was very much into science, who shared with me that he also felt like everything that exists was totally meaningless because it's temporary and that there was nothing lasting beyond itself. And then I have a second part, but maybe we'll just share like the second part once we cover, inshallah, the second part.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else?
We always hear the sisters share. We need some of the brothers to share as well. It's not fair. We need to hear their voices.
It's up to people. Okay, so we can go back to the text, and if you
share, Yamina, Dr. Yamina, I can share also. You felt very a sense of collapse. Like I felt things are collapsing, and it's a very kind of empty and dark feeling, and from the chest to stomach, it's a very heavy feeling. I imagined everything passing, and then I imagined the whole like globe kind of becoming like, collapsing into nothingness, and then the whole universe. And that that's what meant transience, and at that point, and that really is a very difficult place. Suffocating is a good word for it, actually. It's a very difficult place to be, and I look forward to coming back to al-Baqi, because it's a very, very
you can attach to anything. I mean, attach. There are two attachments. You remember in the first point, the first Ya Baqi anta al-Baqi, or Eternal One, you are the Eternal One, is to cut that horizontal, illusory attachment to things, loving them for themselves, in themselves, as though they were the source of perfection, the source of loveliness, something lovable in themselves. And the second, O Eternal One, you are the Eternal One, was to come back and re-establish a connection with everything in the name of God, in the name of the Eternal One, in the name of the Loving One. So, because lots of our attachment are a kind of loving things. And now the second one is done with Iman, with Ihsan. When the person is connected to God and lives in the presence of that reality, that everything is transient, nothing can give me or sustain me or give me anything or help me except the one, and everything is actually being sustained right now, just like me. So I will still have a relationship with them, but this relationship is going to be a conscious, mindful relationship. They now are mirroring the beautiful names of God. And so my relationship is from God to the world, God, me. So, and the simple, maybe simplistic example was the telephone. In the beginning, it's like a child who thinks that the telephone calls and is directly related, connected to everyone on the contact list. And then you realize suddenly that no, when you don't pay for your subscription, then you are disconnected. So actually, we have only one connection to the satellite. It is through that satellite that we connect to everyone else. And it is true in a way. This is just an example, a metaphor. That's how we are related to everything else. So we start relating with everything, but not horizontally, but vertically. And when it is vertical, it means we are aware of their being created here and now. They're mirroring the face of God. They're reflecting the beautiful names of God here and now. And so the world is no more an obstacle to remembering God, but it's just the opposite. The world is the reminder of everything. They are all glorifying God and teaching us and witnessing for us, testifying so that we can witness their testimony and helping us find God, know God. So when I said here in the second point, this love and connection to everything, I meant in the second vertical way, in the name of God. Unless there is that connection, unless there is eternity, then everything is meaningless. And meaningless, and also we can't attach and we can't bond to other things. I mean, a very simple example. If we, you can take a rental, your own home, you bought it, or you are visiting in a hotel room, or let's say you are visiting, you rented a home, but only for a weekend. When you rent a home for the weekend, there may be some paint peeling, there may be some colors that you dislike or something. you notice it, and you don't feel like you don't start thinking, shall I change this? What shall I put instead, or anything, because it's temporary. Therefore, whether I like it or dislike it, I don't get attached. But if it is a rental for a year, for 2 years, then I start becoming a little more concerned. And if it's my home, I want to renovate it, I want to paint it, I want to. And this is our connection to the world. I mean, I could be doing the renovation now. That's an example at one level only. I don't want to be misunderstood, for it to be misunderstood, because someone can renovate the house but not being attached to it horizontally, or I can not care about the house, but I'm still stuck in the horizontal. I'm just doing it or not doing it for other reasons. So we are not going into the reasons or anything. It's just an example that we need to have a sense of lastingness in order to invest in something. If I know for sure that I'll be leaving this world in a month, let's say, you don't go and start a business or start a new education or anything.
Now, this sentence here, I think.
Let's start from the beginning, or go ahead and then we start from the beginning.
No, let's start. Yeah.
Go ahead. Mention what's.
It's here in the beginning. But if there were no imagined immortality, and in this meditation, that's how I felt. I couldn't attach to anything. It just felt void. I mean, they are real now, but if everything is collapsing, doomed to collapse tonight or any moment, then the heart just feels the terrifying thing. And
it is terrifying.
We imagine immortality. I mean, when you become friends with someone, you don't say, well, in a couple of years we will disconnect or go our ways. You don't. You feel like you're friends forever. Of course, friendships can change in form, or even you can disconnect eventually, but you can't love that way. And when you were referring to the house, a house metaphor that works for me is that when we first moved into the house, we bought this house and we're happy, excited, and we moved in and we were giving away a few things. And this lady came and she said, I need this thing because I am moving my mother from our home where she lived there for 40 years to her nursing home. And I need this thing to help with that move. I think she got boxes or something. And she said, before she said that, she said, you just moved in, you're excited. I said, yes, we're so excited. She said, yeah, this is, our house was just like this. And I grew up in that house. And my mom said it, and maybe even more than 40, maybe 50 years, my mom lived in that house. And now she's coming out of it. And as soon as she said that, something just squished in my heart, because I was like, what? Because then I realized exactly this, that I'm moving into the house. If you asked me in person, rationally, I wouldn't say I will live here forever. I would probably say we'll sell the house after the school finishes. Like I could tell you rationally, but emotionally, I had moved in, and my deep down feeling, I love this home, and I'm not thinking about one day I'm gonna leave this house. And so I just wanted to say that really resonates with me. I can confirm that we love to the extent that we can imagine some sort of endurance. Nobody denies that, we are going to die. But, and if there's nothing afterwards, then it's even worse.
The emotion at the level of the heart, we have a sense of things are going to endure, otherwise we wouldn't be able to invest anything, get attached, love something, or so that's what he says in the beginning. Yeah. included in human nature. And what does it mean? It means the human heart is created in that way. That's the fitra, that there is an intense love of immortality. What does it mean? How do we understand that we have that? Because you said, I am not aware of that. He's explaining what it means. Because of his power of imagination, man here is insan, human being, fancies a sort of immortality in everything he loves. He cries out from the depths of his being whenever he thinks or sees passing. So when we experience something, the passing of something, it's there is grief, but that grief, if our relationship with things is vertical, we already learned that grief is going to be sweet and takes us back to God and increases our iman, our presence in our mindfulness of God, our living with ihsan. However, if we are in a state of ghafla and we are stuck in the horizontal and vertical, we're talking about the heart. We're not talking about what I know, what I think it is, how it feels to me. If I've never stayed with my feelings and sorted them out, then I won't be aware where I am. And when something that is dear to me passes away, then that grief can last longer, is very painful for sometimes, for some people. If it is a person that is very close to them, it may even lead them to deep despair and hopelessness. So that's all those feelings. If that grief doesn't become like a place of springing to getting closer to our ubudiyah, closer to the reality of transitoriness, and therefore to the eternal one and our need for the eternal one, then the symptoms will be there. That grief will be very painful. It will be like a wound, like someone cut inside the heart. That's also a sign, that's also a message telling us that we are imagining things to be enduring in themselves, and that's why we are wholeheartedly committed to them in a horizontal way. So the fact that we have this ability shows that the heart can only love when there is immortality. When we don't see it, we imagine it. All lamentations at separation are expressions of the weeping caused by love of immortality. If we didn't have the love of immortality, then we wouldn't be, separation wouldn't affect us. But separation, and we talk really about separation when it's something, someone, some situation that we hold dear to us, or we give it importance, we give it, it's significant for us. That separation is like you've been skinned alive. It's like a piece of your flesh is being taken out, and that is also an evidence, a sign that we are created to love immortality. And that's why when we wake up with the reality that our beloveds are mortal, it's so painful. If there were no imagined immortality, there would be no love. Do we agree? Because this is the summary of all that was said before. It's a very strong statement. Can anyone say, no, I can love, thanks, people without imagining? Here, immortality is in the sense of enduring. And it's not like we think they are in, we know, but that's knowing is not, our belief is what we live with. What we live with is how it feels to us.
Yamina, I think like we do it in the other way, which is the same, but we don't focus on it being mortal. So we don't, yes, but I think if we don't focus on it being mortal, then we believe in it's immortal, because like, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. That's why we need to remember that everything is mortal and passing and transient. That's the only way we will appreciate, become aware of our need for immortality and seek the immortal, the eternal. And when we find him, as it was said in the end of the first point, since you exist, since he exists, then everything exists. When we forget about him, then everything, and we think that things exist on their own, eventually we will realize that on their own, they have no existence. It's something that needs to be lived. So it's something that we need to remember repeatedly, because that's how we learn, especially when it's something that we every day repeated again and again without even thinking. So it's ingrained in us to perceive the world as though it was not transient, as Ali said. That's exactly what it is. As though it was not transient, it means eventually as though it had some endurance. So what we need to do is every day remember that everything is transient. We are transient. As the ayah says, everything perishes except his countenance.
May I join the conversation?
Yes.
One of the things that I've been practicing is, and let's say it doesn't matter what I'm seeing, but particularly with people, is to see if I can imagine what the divine quality is that I see in that person. And so it might be how looking at how beautiful the beauty of God is as it manifests in that person, or how wonderful it is to see the divine wisdom as it's expressed through that person's words. So to want to see the deeper qualities in a human being that also creates a bridge between humanity and that which is everlasting. So even the flowers that are beautiful and then they fade, to simply say, how beautiful, subhanallah, at the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it manifests in this little flower. So that's a way, because I think that, we have something to do here as well. If I I don't want to go off the deep end either way. Try to jump into immortality or hold on to mortality. I want to find what experience and perhaps express that bridge, connecting with the light or the manifestation of the divine here on earth, and how do I connect with that person in a different way? So thank you.
Thank you. That bridge is the countenance, God's countenance, which is everything is reflecting God's countenance. It's reflecting
Yes.
that aspect that looks to the eternal, beautiful names of God. And so, as you said, like in a flower, when it looks pretty, as Imam Nursi says, instead of saying it, how beautiful it is, say how beautifully it is being made, or it has been made. Because the moment when we are unaware, the first I see something attracts my attention, it looks pretty, I feel something and appreciation, and I say, oh, how beautiful. He says, change your word so your word also will remind you of the reality. Subhanallah, mashallah, how beautiful it is made. And of course, at that level, still the heart may feel like you're saying this, but actually I am seeing, I mean, not the heart, but like if we, at the beginning of the journey, it seems like what I'm seeing the flower is beautiful. What are you talking about? Like, he is beautiful. So we say, when we say how beautiful it is made, we say, Ya Jamil, oh beauteous one. But as you said, when it fades and wilts and there is no the form and the colors and even the beautiful smell and all that beauty suddenly disappears, that is also speaking, that transience is saying, just in case in your heart you felt it was from me, the flower in its death, in its disintegration, is also speaking of God, glorifying God, making tasbih and praising him and saying, it is not from me. That beauty, if it were from me, wouldn't go. That form, those colors, anything, it is not from me. It it's like it completes the cycle of its testimony, the cycle of its glorification of God. So you see, part of it has to come with the transience of things, because if things were not transient, then we would not feel the need to find the source. We would say, what do you mean? Like the flower is beautiful, full stop. But now I say the flower is beautiful, and they say, what happened to the flower? Where is that beauty? So the flower is made beautiful. It is a mirror to eternal beauty. So we can apply the eternal to all the names of God, and the bridge, that's the countenance of God. That's the what's mirrored in everything, and that looks to God, to his beautiful names. The first step is the beautiful names. So he says here, if there were no imagined immortality, there would be no love. It might even be said that the intense desire for immortality, arising from the passionate love of immortality, and from the spontaneous general prayer for it. It's a fitri. That's how we created. We long for it, we want it, that desire spontaneous general prayer for immortality is a reason for the existence of the eternal realm and everlasting paradise. It's like it requires, in a way, or from another aspect, it points and indicates the existence of an eternal realm where everything is flowing from and going back to. And the everlasting paradise, because paradise is where all the perfections, the beauty and the perfection is, the realm of perfection. And the perfections in this world are so transient, so temporary, so passing. And if we stay with that passing of all things beautiful and valuable, and if we don't want to acknowledge that they are coming from somewhere and going to somewhere else, then it's very hard to live a fulfilling life. Life will be like at the beginning of hell before hell, because it will be tasteless, joyless, purposeless, meaningless, loveless, because there is no true love if there is no true lastingness. And usually people love because we have this ability to imagine the immortality. But if someone is sober enough, how do you say, to realize that everything is transient, but does not want to acknowledge that these things are transient, but they're coming from somewhere, and therefore they're pointing to everlastingness. If we don't take this second step that is also ingrained in our fitra, then it's very, very painful life. People become more cynical, more. The Eternal One of Glory accepted human beings' intense, unshakable, innate desire and his powerful, effective general prayer. Our desire for immortality is like a prayer, not a prayer with words, a prayer with our state of being, with our hal. For he created an eternal realm for him. Although he's a transient being, he created for us an eternal realm. Is it at all possible, he's saying, that the munificent and compassionate creator, I think here, munificent creator is Fatir al-Karim. Fatir is the one who creates in this fitra. The fitra, the nature of human being, is different than nature of a cat. If you bring a cat in a home, the cat doesn't one day become a human being because he's of its social environment. Why? Because it has a different fitra. A human being has this fitra that he longs for immortality. And the munificent is Kareem, and compassionate creator is al-Khaliq al-Rahim. Would he accept the insignificant here is juz'i? It's more like small and limited rather than insignificant. Wish of the tiny stomach. So human being has a stomach, and stomach means a need for nutrition, for nourishment. And this need is like a prayer, like a supplication through the tongue of disposition, through this hal, for a temporary immortality by creating, because nourishment is for this passing, transient life. And even the nourishment, actually, to survive, we don't need a lots of things, yet he has created innumerable delicious foods. So many that some food grow in a region and some in another region, and now we get to know about them. So it means it's not just for feeding the body, it's for reflecting, for appreciating, for knowing God with his endless beautiful names, and it's for gratitude, for, so he said, for nourishment, for the need of this stomach, he's created so many, much more than you need. And is it possible that you have this huge, very intense desire of human beings for immortality, and it's an overpowering, innate need, and it's universal. The other one is particular. The words used in the original is juz'i and kulli, the opposite of universal. Constant, rightful, just prayer for immortality. Could he not accept? He accepts the limited, restricted, particular need for nourishment of the stomach in such a generous way. And is it possible that he won't, or he doesn't answer this overpowering need, this intense desire, it's like, because without it, nothing will make any meaning. Like the whole creation will become useless and meaningless and purposeless. Is it possible that he's not answering that overpowering need? God forbid, haja, 100,000 times. It is impossible that he would not accept this prayer, and fulfill this need. Not to accept it would be would not be appropriate, would be in keeping with neither his wisdom, nor his justice, nor his mercy, nor his power, nor with any of his beautiful names. Since human being is most desirous of immortality, all his perfections and pleasures are dependent upon it. Because we have this need, it looks to everything, all the perfections, all the pleasures, all the joys, all the achievements, everything depends on this immortality, on everlastingness. If there is nothing, no true future, then everything will be like you put anything you want between brackets and then you multiply by 0. At the end, it's 0. Transience is this.
And it reminds of your previous example of being in a hotel. Even if there are things to improve, let the bed be on this side, maybe it will get better light. You don't care because you're there for a day or two. So really our perfections and pleasures are dependent on having some sort of imaginary, at least, notion of duration. So like if your skills won't come forth, you won't really invest in anything if you don't feel that it has some everlasting thing to it. I mean, Alia nicely put it, very nicely put it earlier. She said, we don't think about them being eternal. We just don't think about them being
exactly
transient. So like that's how we're able to engage in everyday relationships, in everyday life, and work hard and this and that. Because
but does it mean that they are not transient?
Yeah, and that doesn't also mean that we are relating to them in a way that's actually true to what they are. They are pointing to something beyond, to the eternal one, and doesn't necessarily mean we are relating to that way. But in any case, some sort of immortality has to be there for us even
Sure.
virtue, right? I mean, why would we stand up for justice if you think tomorrow there will be a blast will go off and everybody's gonna die? Okay, if I have a case in the court, if my renter is not paying, or if somebody, if I'm oppressed, somebody, who cares? Like, we are all gonna die and be nothing tomorrow. So, like, but then we do have this.
That sense of justice will become like,
Yeah.
we would be like, why do I have, what does it mean?
And yet it is strong. There's a part in us that doesn't settle with, injustice, that doesn't settle with
overpowering, that even if I say, yes, the world is transient, I still want to go ahead and, even if I am stuck in the horizontal aspect of things, still, it means so much it is in our fitra. That's how we are created. We don't say, I don't care because tomorrow I may not be here. It's true that tomorrow I may not be here, but we live as though we're not going to die. And that's not the problem is not there, because once we start relating to the eternal one, once we start seeing Wajh Allah, God's countenance in everything, then there's no problem, because even if I'm going to die this evening or tomorrow, I still give it 100%, if I can, my best. And then giving everything our best will become more meaningful, because there will be no contradictions and no paradoxes in life.
And that way, the hadith that says, if you're planting a sapling, a tree, and the day of judgment comes, doomsday, you finish planting it. I mean, everything is going to be destroyed. Why should you keep going? Because there you're saying, you're looking at in a vertical way, you're saying, I am here, I find in myself this urge to do, to manifest some of God's beauty, some of God's wisdom, and I'm doing it right now. And in the middle, it's told that it's not going to be able to give fruits. Doesn't matter. I'm going to finish planting my tree. That makes sense.
But if I am connecting with everything only horizontally, and God is just, I'm adding it. It means I don't deny God, but I'm not connecting to Him through His beautiful names organically, I'm not performing the Shahada. Then if I am going to forget about doomsday, even if I am going not to be here in this home tomorrow or next month, I said, why should I plant it? Because I'm planting it for something in return, a horizontal result, a cause effect. I'm not seeing, I'm unaware of the vertical connection, of it being a mirror to some divine perfection. So that overpowering desire, nothing is wrong with it. What I do with it, how I relate to it, is what matters.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't know if this image, is will be helpful, but what's coming to mind for me is the image of the conveyor belt with things, imagining them being transient. Like they come in there and they just fall, somewhere, I don't know where. But in the meantime, it's so hard. You cannot relate to any of the things that come in there. If there's, if you see them all transient all the time, there is no time to establish even, single, with any of the items, even if you imagine them being just like a candy or something, just just as the conveyor belt, the idea, right? So it's very hard to relate to anything if you cannot just press a stopper. I don't know.
The accepting transience is the first step in interacting with the world as ayat. So it's a step. It's the first. We're not going to stay there forever. See it this way. In the beginning, because we are coming out of, in order to come out of that ghafla, in mindlessness, however I say God, or it just not denying is not the same as knowing God and believing in. Believing, Iman, is having certainty, is having testified. I have to observe and see in order to witness and bear testimony. So in the beginning, when I am in a state of, I am unaware, or I am not acknowledging the transience of things. What does it mean? It does not mean that I am saying they are not transients. No one will say that because we all know they are. However, the heart is relating to everything, including my own life. Actually, they are mirroring each other. However, I perceive myself and my life, that's how I perceive the whole world, and vice versa. So I am not saying they are not transient, but I am living as though they were not transient, as though I am staying here, as though forever, as though there is no end. I cannot imagine the end of my life as if. Now, in order to go out of this predicament, of this situation, I need to face the reality of transience. When I face the reality of transience, I am not going to stay there saying, oh, everything is transient, everything is transient. No, the ayah says everything is transient except, I can only say except God's countenance when I acknowledge and testify and feel and taste and experience the reality of transience. This is something that I've been repeating for years, because if you take the Quran, there is no way, and I shared many, many passages where you can see that the reasoning, the steps to being aware and acknowledging everything as an ayah comes through acknowledging that transience first. Because unless I acknowledge that transience, it means I am deluded, I am still perceiving them, imagining that whatever they are displaying is from them, as though they were the source. I'm not saying it, but that's how it feels. And one example that I always give, because it's repeated so many times in the Quran, is water. Unless I've gone through this training and this reflection and contemplating and meditating, it feels like unless I water my plants, they are going to wilt. And I see I have a peace lily here behind me. And very quickly, you know that it needs water because it starts, all the leaves starts going down. You put water, half an hour later, they are again all up, as if they're being grateful for. So unless I have reflected, it seems like water equals life. So I'm not saying water is the source of life, but I am relating to it as though it was the source of life. And if you ask me, inside, deep down in my heart, I feel, yeah, but no water, means death, of course it is, yes, God makes it, God created, but the relationship, the connection with God is very confused, unclear. In my heart, my gratitude, my love, my attachment is to the water. For water, you can take money, you take, I am working, this is my achievement. You can apply it to any cause-effect relationship. So the first step is to question, how can lifeless, that's what transience is. It's not from it. It doesn't last. It doesn't have anything. How can it give life? So the moment I understand that it cannot be from it because it's transience, transient means all its qualities are not essential to it. None of its qualities are essential to it. Therefore, it cannot help anything, as we are told in the Quran. They cannot help you. They cannot even help themselves. Once my heart is satisfied with this, I do it again and again, and I observe it and see it. And yes, this can't. They are transient. They are lifeless. They have no conscience, no knowledge, no power. Then I can say, so who is doing it? La ilaha illallah, as we said last week for the first point. La ilaha la baqiya illallah. La muhyiya wa la hayya illallah. So there is no enduring except him. There is no living and giver of life except him. There is no powerful except him. The except him is going to come when we witness and stay with the first one. The more we are convinced, the more we will see, but we see power, we see life, we see here in this sense, the thing may not have endurance really, but it goes, the flower goes, another similar flower comes. So the beauty of flowers, there is a sort of endurance, and that endurance is indicating a source of immortality and endurance. So someone is giving them this, what I'm seeing, the qualities I'm seeing are coming from somewhere. There is no way we can see and perceive things as signs, as messengers, bearing messages from God, reflecting as mirrors, reflecting the beautiful names of God, reflecting and mirroring the wajh Allah, the countenance of God, unless we contemplate the La ilaha and actually taste it, experience it, perceive it, observe it, live it. And part of the La ilaha is La Baqi. They are transient. Transient means all the names, all the qualities that we see in a flower, in this, in whatever situation, it is not from them because it is not lasting. So it's the first step. And it takes us to the second step, which is what they are manifesting. Those qualities, if they are not theirs, then whose are they? We can't go to whose are they when in our heart it feels like the beauty belongs to the flower. But if I am consciously saying, how can this something, a seed becomes something like this? First step. Second step, it fades, it wilts, it dies. Now there is a signature that I am transient. Whatever you saw, all those beauty, the beauty, the perfection, whatever you saw there, they all belong to whoever is making. It's coming from somewhere else, not from me. So in order to witness to God, we have to testify, to see, to witness the manifestation, the reflection of his beautiful names. And that's only possible when we are aware and accept and confirm that everything is perishing, passing, dying, being made, it means we have to stay with the reality of transience, the reality of being sustained. That's the only way. There's no other way. The other way is we're just repeating without being, we're not performing the shahada. And that's why it does not truly permeate all our life. It does not enter the heart truly. It enters the heart to the extent that we stop and listen to the heart and let the heart face the reality of transience, for instance. And in that transience, we will see it is the mirror to the eternal one, to the source of endurance. That's why we need patience and perseverance as well. And that's why it's called a seeking God's, in the Quran, we told those who seek God's countenance. يبتغون وجه الله.
So we should put effort for the matter most important to man, it says here. Most important, the matter most important for man, his most pressing duty is to form a relation with the Eternal One and to adhere to his names.
Yes. And for that, we have to, I can sit and say it, which is good too. It's better than not saying it. But in the world, how do I say it? I can only say it and experience it to the extent that I see something beautiful. It is fani, it is transient, it is perishing. Therefore, it is, then I realize that it is a mirror to the divine beauty, to divine perfection, to life. That's the only way I can connect to the Eternal One. Of course, I'm going to connect to him also through me, through my own, when I recognize that I am also, my life is transient, everything in me is transient, it means nothing is essential to me, everything is given to me right here and now, and I can lose anything, my seeing, my hearing, my breathing, anything, here and now. And so how I see the world and how I see myself is like a cycle. It's complementary and they feed into each other. In the beginning, we start with the outer world because it's easier. Because in the beginning, when we are coming from ghafla, at the center of ghafla is the ego's claim, illusory claim for independence, for I am whatever I value in my life. I want to own it, whether out or in, I want to own it and I want to appropriated to myself. Even if I say God gave it to me, yes, but now it's mine. Like, and if you dare criticize me or say something about it, something, I'm very, like, we become very defensive. And so it's all about learning to let go of those false claims, of those delusions, of those self-deception. But in the beginning, we learn it through realizing that, yeah, everything is, water is doesn't have life. The flower is being given life through something lifeless. And so I realized that the whole relationship is telling me about the eternal one, about the eternal beautiful names. And so each time, if I'm truly doing it and not only saying it, but performing it, experiencing it, each time it will come back inside. And Allah also creates in our life situations where we will have to face the reality of our claim. We said God is the giver of life, he is this and that, and then it feels like it's my life, I do whatever I want with it. That's where we are tested. And it's every test at Bela is an opportunity to let go of my claim and accept the reality that he is my Rabb, and whatever gift I am holding on is not mine. It is a gift, it's not mine. Or if I choose to not let go, then I start not seeing it in the outer world. I start forgetting. Sitting and reflecting and meditating will start. I'll start forgetting. Why? Because it's going to remind me of my own reality, and I'm not ready to let go. So it's a cycle, but it's a cycle that goes upward like a spiral if we choose to let go and surrender to the reality, accept the reality. And the more we surrender, the more how we perceive ourselves, and therefore how we perceive the world will change. Ultimately, Tawheed is going to be completed inside. If there is still I claiming something, whatever I'm claiming for myself, I am going to, at the heart level, it's going to feel like, if life is mine somehow, if it feels like it's mine, therefore the life of every other living being is theirs. And therefore, God being the living and the giver of life is going to be affected. My perception of God, of course, not God being the giver of life, is the truth. There is no, that's the reality. But as far as I'm concerned, it won't be my reality. I will still be deluded. I will still be living in a bubble of delusion. And so we want that bubble of delusion to get smaller and smaller. And it's when there's no, in a situation when the bubble collapses, there's no bubble, then there is Tawheed. Because it's either 0 or 1. There is nothing in between. That's why there are Hadith Qudsi where it says God does not accept any shirk, because if there is shirk, is not 80%, it feels like 80% God, 20% the water is doing it. No, if the water is doing it, then there it means I am just claiming that God is doing the rest. No, it's either or in reality. God is doing it, that's it, finished. If you are not seeing it, it's because we're still stuck in the horizontal. We have the illusion of horizontal relationship. They don't exist. They exist only in the illusion of the I, the ego, the I, we don't have to call it ego, the I that imagines itself to be somehow independent of its sustainer, its Rabb. And this is not imagine, is a feeling, not I am a claim. Well, some people may claim that. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about ourselves, people who are on the path, who are believers in God and want to know God and believe in Him as He teaches us in the Quran. So we're talking about the students of the Quran, inshallah. And how do I let go of my delusion? It's a matter of knowing and learning, but it's also that's a necessary step, but it's not sufficient. The deciding thing is the intention and the decision, the choice we make. I choose to accept the reality. I let go of my false claim. And I may still go back there. It's okay. When I find myself there, if I have that, if I have made that decision, whenever I realize it, I say, astaghfirullah, ask for forgiveness, let go again. So it's not about being perfect, but it's about having the right attitude, the right intention, meaning having made the decision to make the right choice whenever I become aware of it. It's a journey. It doesn't matter where we are at the journey. The istiqamah, the direction of the journey is what matters. Some may be at the beginning of the journey, some may be in the middle, at the end, but they are all on the same, following the same destination. The destination is what matters.
So, shall we pause for tonight on that note?
Yeah, we can just read the last sentences to seal this. He says, since human being is most desirous of immortality, all his perfections and pleasures are dependent upon it. And since immortality is particular to the Eternal One of Glory, and since the Eternal One's names are enduring, all the names of God, and immortal, and since the Eternal One's mirrors, everything is in a way a mirror to the Eternal One, they take on the hue of the Eternal One and reflect His decree and manifest a sort of immortality. For sure, the matter most important for man, his most pressing duty is to form a relation with that Eternal One and to adhere to His names, His beautiful names, al-Asma al-Husna, because they are the bridge for us. For everything expanded on the way of the Eternal One receives a sort of immortality. The second, remember there are two, Ya Baqi ant al-Baqi, Ya Baqi ant al-Baqi. O Eternal One, the second, O Eternal One, you alone are eternal, expresses this truth. In addition to healing man's innumerable spiritual wounds, it satisfies the intense wish for immortality inherent in his fitra, in his nature. Yes. So we'll stop here, but if you have anything you want to share, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I will share a situation that happened today that I think beautifully, practically, very practically captures, mashallah, everything that we've talked about this week and last week. So it was the first time that I had a doctor's appointment for my son, his 18-month checkup, and we didn't go to the last one because of being in Brooklyn and New York being an epicenter and everything. So we go today. Finally, I take him in the car. We have one little errand. It's 10 minutes away. We go. Everything is all good. We leave. We get back in the car. I put him in the car. He asks to hold my car keys. And I say, no, no, no. He takes it anyway. I say, okay. I go to open the car on the other side so we can drive home. And he locks it before I can get in. So now this small human being is locked in a car. It was around 4 p.m. or later, a little bit after 4 p.m. And I'm asking him to open any other button except the one that locks. And of course he's not. He's only pressing the lock button. So subhanAllah, I have to call 911. And before they can even arrive at the scene, mashallah, these two brothers in the street were compelled to come to the window because they were just moved to do so. They saw the situation and immediately they're like, their desire for immortality immediately manifests. Like, we need to get in this car, like more panic than me. Like, we need to get in. All right, what are we gonna do? And they're like talking to him, talking to the baby, press the buttons. And he's only pressing the lock button in the car. So they're continuing to talk to him. One man is so compelled, he's only speaking in Spanish. The other man is just looking in the window, talking to him. SubhanAllah, I'm just looking at the situation like in shock that this is actually happening. Eventually, police arrive at the scene, more police, like cars everywhere, looking around. There's people recording. There's people literally everywhere. Everybody is huddled, trying to now break into the car. So I have one police officer on one side, one police officer on the other side, another police officer talking to the baby, and and this baby has no idea what's happening. Is still playing. Meanwhile, sweat drops are piling up all over the place. So people are like, oh, we don't know how much time we have left. So literally like, and the way this one man was he was saying like, I mean, we should just break the window because it's hot in there. There's no windows open. And I'm like, okay, well, if we have to break the window. And I'm looking at him. He seems fine, no crying. He's just playing with the keys. He's having a blast. Meanwhile, his nose is sweaty. His hair is getting sticky. SubhanAllah. So then I just heard this prayer come over me. Like, I entrust you, God, with him. I cannot do anything in this situation. I couldn't even look for something to break the window. There was nothing. SubhanAllah, eventually they opened the door after some time, and everybody's staring at the child in so much grief, like, oh, thank God. Even more than me, like behind me there was maybe 40 people, pedestrians, just watching, and so pleased and so grateful. They have no attachment to this child, never seen him before, but it was this desire for, imagine, everlasting well-being of every human being, this desire for everlasting protection, this desire, like they just needed to see it. Everybody was huddled, and it was, you can tell it was beyond them. They couldn't even control themselves. They were just all, a baby. So there's something inside. I didn't take any footage, subhanAllah, Isra. I was just being in the present situation. So afterwards, EMT is like, oh, I'm sorry, we have to take you to the ambulance because we just have to check on him. Is he fine? I'm like, no, he's acting totally fine. Meanwhile, he's still holding the keys. He has no idea anything even transpired. SubhanAllah, we go into the back of the ambulance. They're trying to check, his vitals. Everything is normal. Eventually, we're dismissed home. So by the time we get home, I have this deeper appreciation for him now. That's, oh my God, I love you so much. Let me kiss you. And he slaps me. So I'm like, oh, astaghfirullah. And he repeats this behavior. So immediately I'm like, okay, no, forget about this whole, you're punished. Let's go upstairs. So it reminded me right away of this, like, I love you, oh my God. And I noticed even putting him to sleep, like there was this outpouring of love, like, oh, I just love you. I just love. And then something, subhanAllah, asked me, and I believe this is from the teachings of Dr. Ali, I remember talking about love, and he reminded us to ask the question, what is it that you love? Is it the flesh? So I'm looking at his skin, his flesh, and I'm kissing his forehead that's like sticky and sweaty nonstop. Is it flesh that I love? And it's so strange, after seeing my brother pass away and seeing how his flesh turned cold, I realized that it's not the flesh. Like, we don't actually love flesh. So I'm looking at him, and as I'm putting him to sleep, I'm like, subhanAllah, it's not, what is it then that I love? And that question for me was the practical way to answer the question, because it's very hard, I think, to imagine death unless you've witnessed it with someone that you love. For me, I was never attached to or could practically practice it until someone very close to me passed. But afterwards, I can ask the question, like, what is it about him that I love? It's really not his flesh. It's really not when he slaps. It's really not these things. Oh, so then I love this beautiful innocence. I love this precious love. I love this tender. So then all of a sudden, and then at the same time, so then I've disconnected, or that first part of like severing the attachment to baby. Well, it's not actually baby. And the same you could do with like a loved one. Like, do I love when this loved one does XYZ that I don't love? No, I don't. So it's not really the person that I love, but I love when they have a constant love for me. I love when they have a constant, justice or care for me. But then that also, again, that question, do I love when this person's not good to me? And thank you, Allah, for those constant reminders that we're all imperfect, because that's, for me, what helps me sever the first attachment, by asking, well, is it really the person's flesh that I love? It's not the flesh. And surely they cannot show me this perfect love nonstop. So it's definitely not the person. And then the last part of it that happened was, I even asked myself, like, where is this love? As I'm putting him to sleep, like, why do I even love this small human being? Like, he came out of nowhere. I'm over here, I don't even know. Like, I literally, it's inside, and I'm watching myself do it, and I can't even control it. Neither could the strangers.
It's the same for all those people.
So that also helped me disconnect from myself. And then I was like, it's not me and it's not you. SubhanAllah, it's just Allah. So if I passed, if you passed, like, it was never us anyway. Like, SubhanAllah.
Channels, like we said, we're mirrors to the divine names. We're channels. Those people who are looking there, they're worried about the baby. They want his well-being. They want him to live. They want him to be well. That was all channel for mercy and love and coming through them. They don't know where it's coming from. And you looking at them, you appreciate that. Where does the appreciation come from? That's how we are created. Appreciations flow through us. We are we're channels, and when we are the more we are conscious, then we become conscious mirrors of the beautiful names of God. And when we become conscious that they are flowing through us, then when we look at others, we won't confuse and think that it's from them. We will be aware that it is coming through them. So that goes back also to the 11th word. And when you were saying about the death, one way is to witness it, a person actually passing away. But another way, especially when it comes to ourselves, is instead of imagining death, this is Imam Nursi also talking about it, imagining our death in the future, it's very hard. It takes lots of effort and imagination and people who do Rabitat al-Maut. However, there is another way, which is think about yesterday, last year, the past. The past is not here right now. It is gone. I'm already experiencing death. There is the death, the final day in this world, but every day is also going. Like you can imagine it. We think we are born per day, and then it's one line, linear, and then one day I pass away. That's it. That's not how it happens. In between, what's going on? In between, I am not, right now, I'm not carrying all the past with me. I am only in the now. Yesterday is not here, last year is not here. They're already gone. So we are in a state of, just like life is being given, what does it mean? Yesterday, death and life are, that's why in the Quran they are the names of God, of dealing death and giving life are mentioned together because they happen at the same time. If the 6-month baby is gone and then the 1-year-old toddler is being created, the other one is already, in a sense, dead. The more we contemplate on transience this way, it's passing, it's gone. Yesterday is not here, this morning is not here, this afternoon is not here. 10 years ago, it almost seems like it's not sure. Is it my imagination or reality? The more the reality of death and transience becomes anchored in us. And so when we see things, we don't attribute or ascribe things to them. And we don't ascribe things to ourselves. If my life is not constant, if it's not permanent, if it's so impermanent, then I become more and more aware that I am being given life. I am being sustained in life. Why doesn't it feel that I am sustained in life? Because I am not aware that the reality is the past is gone. The future is not here. So that's the closest we can get to the reality of death and therefore to the reality of life and being sustained in life here and now. It's not from one, it's not a line, it's a point, but it's flowing in to the eternal, coming from the eternal, going to the eternal. Yes.
Yeah, very, very deep, that life and death are happening at the same time and there's no separation. And what came to my mind is also like, we see our state constantly changing. Like, I was remembering that was such a good moment and now I'm like totally forgetful. So subhanAllah, even that shows that I'm not the one controlling or sustaining anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the Jazakallah khair, Sarah. I love how, subhanallah, the timing, yani, La muqit illallah. Allah always, like the planner, the timer, like gives everyone an experience that is timely for everyone else to understand. So it makes it very, very clear when you share. MashaAllah, may Allah always give you that vision, inshallah. And I love like the phrase that Nursi uses, which is the goal is to form a relationship with the Eternal One. That's like one point. And the second point is to adhere to his names. Like, so what we love about each other is we love when people adhere to his names, when people show this unconditional, like mercy that is that's not related to like them knowing the child, like, you know, compassion, like, you know, they're moved, they're pushed, they're running, they're panicking, like, you know, it's like you find yourself like, you know, like your worry is not accounted for. Like your worry becomes one drop in, like, you know, from a heavy cloud of rain. Like, you know, you think you're worrying, but then you realize like your worry is like, you know, is one point that is given to you, but at the same time everyone is given it, subhanallah, for the same reason, subhanallah, to care.
They were adhering to the compassion and mercy flowing through them. That's how we created. That's the fitrah. And they were adhering to it. Because we can also choose to not adhere. We say, okay, none of my business. We feel like, but we stop ourselves. But when we are acting on it, we are not the source of it, we are not bringing it in. It's like we don't know where it's coming from. It's only when we take that time to stop and pause and ask, where is this coming from, that we start realizing that something that transcends us, that transcends this world, something otherworldly, something divine is going on. And if we don't pause, then without realizing, by default, we take it for granted that that's how it is. People are compassionate. True. What does it mean that people are compassionate?
It's like as if they own the compassion, like as if it is their character. It's a human character. It's like, you know, by default, you're human, you're compassionate.
But where is that compassion coming from? That's the whole. And when we form a relation to the Eternal One, then we start, inshallah, consciously adhering to his beautiful names.
And then they become more valuable because you realize, like, you know, how these people were open to this and how they're reacting on it and showing it beautifully. Like when they adhere to it, it becomes so beautiful. And Sarah, you've seen it in magnitude. You've seen it in like brothers, then like a passerby, then police officers, then bystanders, then so and it kept increasing and increasing. So it's like rain, like it starts coming, then it comes more and more and more and more, and then it, like, you know, it almost overwhelms you, like how what is the extent of it, subhanallah.
And even as like I started hearing the one person say about, oh, it's hot in there, there's no windows open, he's sweating, we shouldn't take a like risk. And then as like I felt myself starting to get panicked, subhanallah, somebody in the one of the bystanders or one of the officers was like, no, don't worry, everything is in good hands. And that immediately struck me like, subhanallah, Allah's given me a sign, like, okay, calm down. And another man came running from down the street that was like, I got a tool that can help you guys. I'm like, okay, subhanallah, like, let me just totally surrender and just watch, including my own self, how the one controlling and willing the situation is going to take care of it. And then it wasn't until the end of the night that I like was able to make that Ya Baqi. I was waiting for the second part of Ya Baqi and al-Baqi all week because I knew there would be some sort of healing for me from my brother. But today, and it had to be today, and I was telling my husband, it came today, this whole situation, the day of my halakah. Like today is halakah day. Allah is so merciful because the calamity comes on the same day as halakah, so that together it's like teaching through practice and through feelings and through words together. And truly, I could not taste it until I realized that it wasn't me who loves this child. Because look, even the guy in the ambulance was like, oh, I'm sorry, I just need to make sure he's okay. You need to sit with me. I'm like, he's fine. And I felt in my head something saying, this is ridiculous. Like, what vitals are you going to take now? We've been here for, but then subhanAllah, something inside of me said, how loving is this love? There's so much love and so much protection here. So just let it flow. Let all of it flow. And so I just realized, like, subhanAllah, it's not me or them or anyone.
It's like the sun. Imam Nursi says, if you look at the mirrors, if you know they are mirrors, and you look and they're all reflecting the same light, then you start looking where is the source of this reflection. Then you find the sun. Otherwise, each mirror, you would imagine it to be a sort of small sun. But then it doesn't last, it's not a sun. But because it doesn't last, you realize that it's not all these people were channeling and reflecting the same love and compassion and care and mercy. It's all coming from the same source, and you recognize it. It's the same. Because we imagine like it's my child, that's why I love him. And we don't say it, but it feels like it until you wake up and say, what's going on? It's not like it.
Allah.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين لله الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم